righty. Hey, Trevor, how's it going, man? I know it's been a little bit of time since we did our last podcast, but welcome back and thank you so much for your time.
Hey Ernesto, man, I'm doing great. Yep, can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, so, I think we have a range of topics, probably nonsense, actually, things that we're kind of been interested in what's going on today and some of the topics. So, which one do you want to grab, man?
Well, I think it's important to just sort of we don't have to go at length on this topic, but the Charlie Kirk incident.
Oh,
It's been two and a half weeks
yeah, yeah, yeah.
since it happened, and I think it would just be important to touch on it, for a couple minutes, and then see where it goes from there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you're right. I think there's a level that we need to address over there. Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, as someone who voted for Donald Trump in
Mm.
all of the elections that he ran for, and but who was also a Democrat before that. I consider myself, more to be on the independent side than on the conservative or on the liberal side. But um, I do think that, Charlie Kirk was was a figure that has sort of become more. He's almost become like transcended through this sort of cultural and political ether. And I'm not sure what to think about it right now, other than to say that I think there's quite a lot of distortion of who he was and what he did on both sides. A lot of people that take his words and misconstrue them. Um, I've listened now at length to many of these speech, just beyond the 30-second clips, to get the context for some of the things he said. And just to sort of sum it up, um, there there were some of the things that he said that I did not agree with, and that I was wondering why he would say these things, if it was out of anger or and just to be fair, because I have to try to be fair. Like for example, when he was mentioning the affirmative action for the four prominent black women four of the prominent black women that we have in society, Ketanji Brown Jackson, of course, the Justice, Michelle Obama, uh, Sheila Jackson Lee, the senator, and then one other, I can't remember off the top of my head, but Joy Reid, MSNBC host, former host. So two of the individuals publicly stated that they had, were recipients of the affirmative action policies. Okay, whatever. All right, and then one, it was he. I think he grouped them. Ketanji Brown Jackson, the justice that Biden hired or appointed, I think grouped and lumped her into the affirmative action because, President Biden very publicly said that I'm going to appoint a Supreme Court justice that's a black woman. And then, but finally, this is where I think the unfair part comes, is that he lumped Michelle Obama in there, and there's been no public statements, no public record, um, verifying or validating the claim that she was a recipient of the affirmative action policies. So that to me was a little unfortunate. And then when he lumped those four together and said you had to go steal a white man's job, I think it was just a careless statement. I could understand the frustration he was feeling at the time, but I don't think that was responsible or appropriate for him to say. So there were things that he said that I think that were just not very calculated, or if they were calculated, probably not for the right reasons. But I don't think I would stretch it enough to say that he was a racist, bigot, xenophobe, and all of those other names that people are attaching to him. I think he was a Christian, and of course he was. He was an evangelist, for one. Not a full-time evangelist, in my opinion, but an evangelist nonetheless. And I think he was a father and a husband, and he didn't deserve to be shot like that, murdered. And yeah, I probably have a couple more things to say about it, but I think I'll segue off and let you respond to that.
Okay. Um, yeah, I think that, somebody who listened to him in a few of his debates, and I remember seeing him in some of the videos from Jubilee and some other ones when he was performing in colleges. I can tell you that I feel the sentiment of many people in the sense that, first of all, this was a tragedy. This was not acceptable. This was done
Right,
out of hate due to the high temperatures. And we don't know. We really don't know that I am aware of uh, the reasons why the shooter would be the one saying that, right?
right,
But I don't want to fall into that. But I want to say that nobody should be harmed by expressing their beliefs and their thoughts. And so, with that, I can say I did not agree with many of the comments or the debates that he would do, or would not agree with his points of views as a overall. Um, but that doesn't mean that it was okay what happened to him. In
right,
fact,
right,
I really think that was a tragedy because we're losing the important part of democracy. We're losing the important part of what America is in a sense. The fact that we can all disagree and we can part ways and be in the same area and still love each other. We don't have to agree. I always said this every time we talk about anything that is political. We should not have to agree. In fact, it's probably a good thing that we don't agree. This is the only
right,
way we can make it better for everybody. And this is the beauty of this country. And many other countries would agree. And so I think this was just a tragedy for all of us because of that. Because now this situation becomes inflamed out of a tragedy. A horrible response from, I want to say, a lot of people where they're either condemning it or finger pointing or blaming somebody else and turn it into this political thing, and just we're forgetting that this was not acceptable no matter what. um and it shouldn't have been acceptable either for uh folks for the right, when I have to compare things like the tragedy that what happened with the congressman uh on Wisconsin, right? Hopefully I got that right. And this
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Thank you. Sorry about that. And I think that's the problem, that we're becoming desensitized with this kind of stuff, and we're starting to think, and it's okay to be the finger pointing and then just owning the libs and try to you know uh, throw the hate on each other. And you know this I feel this is the result of that kind of stuff, that we're normalizing and making it okay when it's not okay. Again, I didn't agree with anything that he said, but it doesn't mean that there would have been any ill will to a father, to a respectable figure. Again, what he did for the right, I think he was doing a really good job, right? Promoting ideals that they're I would think I wouldn't agree with them, but it doesn't matter that what I agree all the time, right? There's figures on the left that do
Right.
the same exact thing, and you don't have to agree with them. That's fine.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's perfectly okay. It's what this democracy is about. So, I mean, you know, um, my sincere um, saddened feelings for the family, wife and children. I think this was really tragic. Um, I really don't have a whole lot to add in the terms of the things that he would say or not. Like I said, I've listened
Right.
to his podcasts. Um, I think the only thing I would say is that one of my criticisms of listening to him is that I feel like he was baiting to people that were woefully unprepared to his level to debate. And I honestly wouldn't really call them debates. They were more
They
just
weren't debates. They
they
weren't
they were
debates.
really more owning the libs, verbal clickbait, to be honest. And the reason why I'm saying this is because in a debate, we have key rules, right? We need to stay on topic. You got to use evidence. You have to respect your opponent, which sometimes it happens, sometimes it didn't. But you also have to listen actively, right? You have to like hear what the other person is saying, and then come up with a rebuttal that stays on topic, not just muddy the waters or just so you can make your point. And so
Yes.
again, I don't really think none of that happened, but not that I haven't seen it from other debaters from the left. This is where we are today, and I wish we could all, excuse me, I wish we could all start reading a start reading a dictionary. I know this sounds terrible, but I may end up saying segue into something else. But I, that's kind of how I feel lately. I feel like everybody needs to start reading a dictionary again and actually learn the meaning of the words and the things that we're saying. When you're saying debate, you mean a controlled environment with formal rules, with a structure. Uh, that's how debates are made. If you're not
Right.
doing that, then all you're doing is just arguing
Yeah.
at each other. That's fine. Just don't call it a debate. Call it what it is. Just
Right.
a rant. You know.
Yeah. And there's usually a way to measure the results of a debate. Usually that's what happens. I mean, that's just like the Intelligence Square debates, which I don't really see posted too much, but those were really good debates. I used to love watching those things, but it's the zone has really become uh, sort of saturated by these 5-second clips and owning the libs or owning the people on the right, which they have a variety of prerogatives. I mean, not prerogatives, but pejoratives to call the people on the right. But can I say something controversial?
Yeah,
This is
of
my
course.
controversial take. Okay, as a Christian, as someone who has voted conservative, Charlie Kirk was not a martyr for free speech. He was not a martyr for Christianity. And the reason for these things is, especially for the Christian, you could probably make an argument for the free speech more than you could the Christian martyr argument. And I think it's very important. And again, this goes back to the definition of the word. But, a martyr is not just somebody who goes out and speaks, and half the time they speak about, Christian principles, and the other half the time they speak about politics. A Christian martyr dedicates their life to spreading the word, the gospel, the Jesus Christ of God, or whatever religion you're in. But I guess we're going to be speaking about Christianity here, and and they are threatened with their life. Their lives are threatened if they continue, and then they continue, and that's what a martyr is, and that's essentially the standard. Um, and that's not what happened in this case. Okay. Now, even if we find out that the killer's motive was his Christian views and nothing else, it still doesn't meet the muster. And you're not going to see the Catholic Church do a formal, I don't know what term that they would call it, but an investigation into making him a martyr. It's not going to happen, or any other Christian organization. And I don't mean to say I don't mean to say these things in order to denigrate his character or his contributions, because I think you're right. He did a good job for the right,
Mhm.
or for conservatives and for Christians, and I give him credit for that. You got to give credit where credit is due. But then again, we can't overdo it here, because if he's a martyr, then we might as well just broaden the definition of what a martyr is, and we could just keep broadening the definition until anyone who dies who believes in Christ or in God is now a martyr.
Or
You
just,
know,
or simply anybody, lower the qualification to anything that happened. For whatever reason. And you're right. And I think that's what it goes back. I'm not really explaining myself very well, but I think we got to go back to putting the weight of the words for what they were intended or we initially meant. And I
yeah,
agree with you in that sense, right?
yeah,
That did he promoted a message? Yes. Was that a message that could have been controversial? Sure. So it was Christianism. So is Buddhism. I mean, every other religion. Sure. So it's politics, right? That just comes with the game. Um, but but being a martyr is something else, and I think I can understand what you're saying, and I think I agree with the sentiment and feeling.
But even with all of that, the murder of Charlie Kirk was really, and I think this is what galvanized people around him and why people are still hurt and upset about it, because it was really felt like it was an attack on a movement. It wasn't just an attack on a man. So I'll give people credit for this, and I felt this too, because it felt like it was an attack on the spirit of of America, basically, as it was pictured in the founding fathers, who were a band, a brotherhood of Christian idealists who had zeal for forming a constitutional republic, unlike any other. Right? It's just the excitement of expanding nation. For right or wrong, manifest destiny. For right, I know that came later, but the promise of a more prosperous world or a more prosperous country, it just and that surety of success was in reach for the downtrodden, for the regular folks. And I know it sounds like a stretch, but it was an idea that was in alignment with Jesus Christ in the Bible. And despite the many pitfalls and tragedies of getting to where we are now in peak America, although some may not agree that we were in peak America, it was just an idea sort of in perpetual motion. And that motion stopped when Charlie Kirk was shot. And I think for millions of Americans, as we recover from this, as people recover from this, it's sort of felt as a reset, as a wake up call to where our rhetoric lands us, what predicaments it can land us in. And I'm not necessarily talking about the rhetoric of Charlie Kirk, because I think it's, I personally think it's a cheap connection to say his rhetoric got him killed. I would never say that, but I do think that the larger framework, the larger body of rhetoric that and the actions that people have been taking on both sides um, lead to violent acts, and it goes beyond Charlie Kirk, like the Minnesota Congress people that you were referring to, Steve Scalise, the Arizona Congresswoman that was had an attempted assassination, and just so on. I mean, you can go on, ad infinitum, and I think it really, really touched the hearts of many people on both sides, to be fair. But um, it also brought out some really harsh and mean comments, and the reaction from that. We're living now in a reactionary culture. So even today I was scrolling through Facebook, and people are exposing others for saying things about Charlie Kirk, or about about things on the right, and they want to expose them to make them lose their jobs or to be hated by their community. And I just think that's not right. Even Dana White, who's Donald Trump's one of his best friends, said he doesn't agree with these firings. And I don't either, because if you're going to do free speech, do free speech. And yes, companies have the right to fire you, but I think it should be, very limited. When it has to be something extremely egregious, like the Secret Service agent. That, I think, was a fair suspension of the Secret Service agent. He has a job to protect the president, and he's out there, sympathizing with those who are happy about the death of Charlie Kirk. I think that was an appropriate suspension. But all the other ones, or almost most of the other ones, I think were probably a reach.
Okay. Well, I think that we can agree that this was a tragedy. I think that
Yeah, yeah,
what I really would like to address is the fact that uh, uh, the people in and again we talked about this in other podcasts when we're talking about blaming the media, and even the media is blaming the media. Apparently nobody is the media. The media is just the media. It's just like a
yeah,
scapegoat. I've heard big media saying, well, the media now. It's like, you're the media, guys.
yeah. You're the media.
Yeah, why are you blaming the media? You are the media. But
Well, yeah,
even the podcast, they do it all the time. They're like, big media. What, dude? You're the guy getting all the views, right? You're part of the media here. Here we are in this small podcast. We do the same thing, and so I just want to call this out. I think we all need to we need to step back. We need to change our step. So I just want to bring up some things, right? You know,
Yeah.
before this happened, there were so many. You know, before it happened, we always had a period of incertitude, and sometimes we just don't get along. And that, and yes, it's understandable, right? We had decades going like that, but then we go back, and I think this is the time when we all need to start thinking. We need to step back and really start thinking. All I want to say is, since 2016, guys, since we allowed that, since it's okay, and I'm not trying to make this an attack, okay, but I really feel like we need to talk about this. Since we are okay with insults going out to one party and then the other one, and at some point the other one is upset, so now they're saying up insults to the other one, and we're normalizing anything. We're all saying this is okay. It's become worse and worse. And just top of my head, just thinking about it here, right? In 2020, we had the governor, Gretchen Whitmer, I think it's her name, right?
Hmm.
With
Yeah.
she was, there was a plan to kidnap her,
Yeah.
and it got politicized, right? From the left, we're thinking, man, this is terrible. From the right, it's like, yeah, how come they didn't do it sooner? I was like, Jesus, guys, that wasn't okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't acceptable no matter what.
No.
And then we had Paul Pelosi, right? Nancy Pelosi's husband, and that happened what, 2022 or something like that. You
Hmm.
know, that was terrible. The
Right.
some guy goes over there and breaks into the house of this elderly man. I mean, I know he's an adult man, right? It's an old man. And just goes over there and beats him with a hammer. What happened there? People on the right are celebrating it. Like, how come he didn't hurt him? I mean, that was not right. In neither side, should have been acceptable. Then we
Yeah.
have the Minnesota killings recently, more recently, just like Charlie Kirk's, in silence from the other side. Come on, guys. I mean, we gotta like make peace with this is not right, and we need to all call it, and we all need to start saying we can't just be okay with uh blaming, blame game, and it's not funny anymore that we're getting to this point where we're just owning the libs and trying to blame each other. I mean, to this date, I keep looking at Facebook posts, right, where the whole hate on the liberals now, and then you can see in the news where this, I forgot her name.
A
Pam
liberal.
Bondi goes out. Pam Bondi
Oh
goes
yeah.
out there to the TV and saying, hey, we're gonna be now cracking down on hate speech. And what's hate speech? It's basically hate speech is anything that is against Trump. And it's like, oh my gosh, what's
Well,
going
she
on,
had to
guys?
walk that back, right? Yeah, she had to walk that back.
She had to walk that back, but did we really need to get to this point right now where somebody had to think that it was okay to make a comment like that? I mean,
Yeah,
as
that
an
wasn't.
overall, don't you guys? As an overall, don't we feel like are we going backwards here, guys? Like we're not really thinking about this through. Come on, we can do better.
Yeah.
And so, more than lamenting this kind of stuff, we seriously need to start making some changes. I mean, look at this. At the same time, Charlie Kirk, there was a school shooting. Nobody spoke about it. Are we getting desensitized? Desensitized? I
Yes, of
apologize that I have
course.
to say it wrong, guys, but that was tragic. And then, just again, this last weekend, we
Yep.
had a church that there was, it was engulfed fired after the shooting. Oh, that's just
Yeah. Well, I think it's
wow.
just compassion. It's desensitization because of compassion overload, and we see all these homeless people. We see everybody addicted to the drugs. Walking the streets like zombies. We we hear all of these negative stories on television, the shootings, the attacks, and it's not just here in the U.S., but in a lot of places. And it's just compassion overload. We want to have compassion. I mean, I remember the Columbine shootings, and it was an absolute national tragedy, and it was on the news for 3 weeks straight. Everybody wanted to know what was going on. Um, just terrible, and it sort of the reaction to that was a cascading effect of policies to protect students in schools. Did it help much? I don't think so, but the reaction was swift from the American people. And then when Sandy Hook happened, which was just a tragedy, but when Sandy Hook happened, people again were super shocked. They were so shocked because they were such young children. And then Uvalde happened, and then it's just like, wow, again, and the nation was shocked. But it's just, and I'm not saying it was less and less and less shocked, but in a sense, it kind of was. And it's like when you're exposed to a stimulus every single day, like and I'm not trying to make a comparison here, but like the noise of your neighbor, and or the noise of your city, it
Mm.
just becomes background noise, and unfortunately, violence is becoming sort of background noise in our culture.
So so
And
so let's stop
yeah,
so let's stop pretending that's okay. Let's
yeah,
stop saying it like I hear this thing on the podcast and the big media.
yeah,
Going to big media, by the way, guys. I'm talking about everybody that is doing this podcast and is on YouTube and any other channels and everybody else, right? We're all on the same thing. Let's seriously start working on dialing this thing back because it just doesn't help anybody. And to your point, I remember reading on this in some book. I can't remember anymore from where, but I remember a saying. Uh, and don't quote me on this, but I think it said one death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And so okay, so it's not it's not now I'm gonna put a pin to this one. I wanna share with you how I feel in terms of politics and in terms of how everything else is going right now, and from center to left. Okay, please don't crucify me here. I'm not trying to be Mister far left guy. But what I'm saying is, for me, corruption on the left is corruption. Corruption on the right is corruption. Either way, I don't excuse it. I don't think it's okay. Back on the Biden days when they were talking about Hunter Biden, I was like, okay, guy, fine, put him in jail. I don't know. I don't know this guy, and he wasn't even part of the party. Or Nancy Pelosi, famous whatever service server email junk. Sure, go ahead and get it investigated. Get it done and over with, right? Corruption is corruption either way. Now we're getting to this point where we're seeing corruption and we're showing or we're calling corruption from the left, and it's so often and it happens so many times that it's becoming a statistic. It just becomes something that we just don't talk about anymore, or we are okay to excuse it. And we talked about this in podcast before. We're excusing it because we were looking for other things, and I just don't think it's right. I just don't think it's okay. So sorry I have to get a little political in that sense, but but coming back to coming back to what we were talking about, for me, I didn't think it was okay. Not one bit that what happened to Charlie Kirk or what happens to any of this folk. I don't think it was okay at all. One bit, not funny one bit, right? Just as much as it wasn't funny for the president to be, to be shot right when he was running for office. I don't think it was funny at all. I don't think it's okay, and we shouldn't be anybody just trying to make light of it or at the same time trying to score a point uh, from the other side. I'm not sure how you feel about what I said.
well, like, no, I mean, I'm in agreement with that. And one of the things that we're seeing is it's a back and forth. For example, the Texas decision from Abbott to for five more Republican seats, and the decision in California to for Proposition 50 are, I think, equally abhorrent. We shouldn't be gerrymandering at all on either side,
Yeah.
because it
Oh my
just
gosh.
further
You're right.
creates division and polarization. And
No,
and
guys.
I'll say especially in California. And the reason why I say especially in California is because the people already voted on having a committee, a
Uh,
nonpartisan committee
uh,
to redraw maps, and
and,
now that's all up in question.
and I'm sorry I don't want to interrupt you on what you're trying to say, but then from my point of view, I'm saying, so why is why is the California state have to be the goody two shoes when they're doing it in Texas just in the open, completely doing it illegally, and it's okay. No, it wasn't okay. So if they, and I'm not saying California should do it, but what's wrong here, guys? Texas shouldn't have been doing this to begin with. You know, the California shouldn't be doing this, but Texas shouldn't be doing it to begin. We shouldn't be doing it in any state. Honestly, gerrymandering should not even exist to begin with. But we'll dive on that for another episode. It's just that's gonna feel like we got the point where now the upper hand and the lower hand, and the lower hand is so low, and now the upper hand realized that didn't work, so now it's on the low hand, and now we both have low hands, and now we're just tit for tat. Where are we going from here? You know?
Well, this is one of the reasons why I think, um, and we talked about this earlier. I just wanted to throw this in here just to pivot a little bit. Is I want to get your thoughts on AI because AI obviously is foundational. You and I both use it for a variety of things, but I've been we've been increasingly seeing AI used in the algorithm selection for what we watch by companies, and it's incredibly intelligent. It knows what we want. My question is why aren't there, or if there are, it's not very widely known, AI agents that will help us filter out some of this? Is it because we somewhere inside of us we want to be attached to this divisiveness all the time? We want to be in this sort of fighting stance all the time?
Oh yeah.
Or do you just think that it's just not very much available because there's not a huge market for it? And is that part of the responsibility that people need to have, is to have a fair use of technology to balance out this culture of negativity that we've built around these what I call the clip economy?
Well, both, yes, yes on those ones. My 2 cents on those ones. As you mentioned, we both use technology. I am closer to uh, uh, technology every day, just simply because of part of the things that I do for a living, which we'll not be discussing here. But so I do work in a lot of the technology industry, and I think uh, what you're saying, yes and yes. Here's the thing, though: why would they filter it if this is what we crave? And this what we crave. The fact that the media that I get fed from my social media apps is not the same yours is
Right.
because I'm listening to the echo chambers and ecosystems of the left, and you're listening to the ones on the right. And I think this is the interesting part when we have this podcast, that we're basically we're kind of like probing each other for things that we don't see, right?
Right.
How come we're not seeing them both? And it's not a happenstance. It's designed this way.
It's
it's
designed that way.
it's designed that way. It's the algorithm is designed to do this, right? And so it's creating this echo chamber of people to listen to their reasoning, and then just reinforcing the reasoning, and there are no places where we can do critical thinking. And now politics are being so explosive that, and I'm just saying, just in this topic in particular, but that we can't just talk about it on the streets, right? I mean, I see it all the time. Sometimes we're talking with other people, and nobody wants to share their points of views because it could be politically incorrect. I mean, let's
Right.
let's look back 15 years ago, not 10 years ago anymore. Let's go back to 15 years ago. Let's go back 18 years ago. Gosh, okay, age just started to hit me. Um, well, let's go back 18 years ago, right? You could say whatever it was that we were going to say, and I remember those days. People were in agreement or disagreeing with you, but nobody was going to make a big light of it. No one was going to cancel you because what you were thinking probably was going to, and also the comments you were going to make, they were probably going to be a little more on the fun side, but at the same time, you could express your thoughts. And now it's not that way. So we're doing this to ourselves. We really are doing this to ourselves, and we can't blame AI for doing And this is why I have problems with AI. My
Yeah.
my problem with AI is that it has the opportunity to rewrite history. And we're giving them the keys and the paper and the pen and saying, here, go ahead and whitewash our history. And we're doing it. We're doing it with things like in the military, where we're removing statues and names and other things. We're rewriting our own history. This is something we should not be doing. How long before, if you notice, up to this date, most people just Google to research, and then you know how research is nowadays, or it was, where you Google something and then you read a ton of articles until you got to the one that was looking for the one you were looking for. So
Yeah.
at that
If
time
you
you
could
were
even, yeah, go ahead.
at the time, in that, using that method at least gives you different perspectives of what you were trying to find. Not perfect, but it's decent, right? Back when I was a kid, I mean, 1,000 years ago, we everybody had to have an encyclopedia,
Yeah.
encyclopedia, and I'm talking about a lot of books to read stuff from, right? And those books were vetted and super vetted and mega vetted for whatever it is that you were looking into. Uh, and so that was important information. But nowadays, we're getting to today, you're going to notice that AI is going to replace the search engine. So you're asking the AI, and the AI is just making up the story, whatever it is, based on whatever information. And now, and it also knows that we are craving of inflammatory information. So just think about it a little bit forward. In a few years, whatever you're looking for in AI is not going to be the same answer I got, or the same that you're going to get one answer, and I'm going to get another one. Same history,
Right.
just different. Um, and so basically, we're brainwashing ourselves.
Well,
That is mess.
that
That's
reminds me of this meme that I saw, or this video that I saw the other day. I don't know if you saw it, but it went fairly viral, and it was two eagles were fighting in the sky somewhere,
Mhm.
and they both fell, and their claws were interlocked, and they were both injured, and you could see their beaks open and their tongues out because they were just tired and they were probably thirsty and they were injured, and they were just right next to each other, interlocked. And you can go down in the comment section, and everybody was talking about, this is a perfect metaphor for what's happening to America right now. And that's so true. That's why memes are so important, because they're just like they're essentially a uh, it's just it's a way for us to view ourselves and our behavior encapsulated in just a short amount of time, or in a single image or a short video. And I think that was perfectly, I mean, it just represents how we are, and so bitterly divided and fighting each other. But I think that this AI has good potential to help us. We just have to have the people with the courage to design it. And, I'm going to say also that eventually our society is really going to have to think about, I say this as a conservative, I say this as someone who loves most of the things that capitalism has produced. But I think that we are going to have to seriously question how we move forward as a people with our current economic system and the way that people are incentivized. I'm not saying get rid of incentives, but I think we need to allow AI and smart technology to aid us in in our further development. See, some people would disagree with that, and they say, no, we need to destroy it because it's going to destroy us.
No.
But I don't think so. I think that it could be a good aid for us as long as we're responsible. But right now, we're like little children. We're running around immature. We have this very powerful tool in our hand, and we're waving it around like we've got the biggest guns in the world. And we need to calm down and grow up as a society. I'm speaking as a society. And this is beyond sightedness. This is beyond whose side you're on. We have to get rid of that, as you've mentioned, as I mentioned. I'm sure a lot of people listening agree. We've got to get rid of the sightedness before we could actually move on as a society. And perhaps that's going to be this new generation's biggest challenge, is to find a way to mend the wounds and to move forward and to progress like we've been doing for thousands of years, sometimes up, sometimes down, sometimes faster, sometimes slower. Sometimes we take some steps back as a civilization, and sometimes we take some steps forward. And I think it's time to stop taking steps back and taking some steps forward.
I agree, but I think it's also I think it's time to put your face in the mirror. I think it's time for us to put the face in the mirror and start looking at the things that we're doing. You mentioned that the next generation is to think about this, and I can't help but thinking all men argue when where young men are losing their lives, right? How many wars were fought with young men while the old people was in the room arguing about the lands and the rights?
Right,
So
right.
we are the older generation, or we're getting older, and there's older generations above us. I mean, and I mean, even in high offices, uh, what are we doing? We're the adults in the room. We're the ones who
Yep,
needs to change it. Just not throw the buck to the kids.
yep,
We're the ones who need to look into the mirror and say, we gotta fix this. We gotta change this now. In the sense of what you're saying with AI, to me, is we're just feeding it what we're craving. So this is
yep.
exactly what it's going to do with us, and I can see it happening. You know, I can see it happening. We need to change that. In fact, you mentioned something, the apathy that we're getting now of homelessness and crime and things like that. But we have the powerful technology of AI now. We could actually start thinking statistically and start paying attention and start figuring out what really works and what really doesn't. I think, just in the cities, I've seen it. I've seen a lot of suffering from people and homelessness and urban development and other things. I can tell you, I can tell you the left has tried to do things to fix it and it didn't get better. I know the right is trying with the whole let's just throw them out and then that's gonna solve itself, but that doesn't work either. How about we all just stop owning the libs and we really start sitting down and talking about it, right? Let's come up with some ideas that do help, that could help society, could help homelessness, and at the same time it works
Right,
for the capitalistic system. Because honestly, we
right.
can find a solution to anything, right?
Yep. If we
And
if we have the desire and the willingness to
yeah,
talk about it.
yeah, yeah. If we can just discuss it and just stop owning the libs and just stop thinking that way, and we seriously start tackling things, we should do it. I mean, I would even love to put that into some of the commentaries over here, maybe making a bigger chat. Who knows? I think that would be great. Um, I don't know what you think, my friend, but I think we should probably cut it for today. Um, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Well, let me just bring it full circle back to Charlie Kirk, because I think that's a perfect way to bring it back, which is, if we're going to have open dialogue, then we need to bring it. We need to do what you were saying in the beginning, which is, I've been thinking, I'm really thinking about this, which is if we're going to go to college campuses, if we're going to go, have these forums with people, we need to allow them to lay out their ideas, whether we agree with them or not, in a debate type of format, and really let these democratic the characteristics of a democracy, which is to speak about things, and then once we can decide to vote on things between us in these formal debates, then we can let our constitutional republic work the way that it works. They're a representative democracy, and we have tools in place for this, but we have to talk first. We have to talk first. We have to talk first
Yeah,
in a fair and a respectable way. That doesn't, not in these verbal MMA judo matches. And again, I don't want to villainize. I don't want to villainize Charlie Kirk, because again, I think he was a very respectable person in many ways. I think he was a flawed human being, like all of us are, and definitely didn't deserve what he got. But we definitely
no,
need to heal, and yeah. So that's where I stand on all of that.
I honestly think that would be a good memory for him, that we pay attention and we change, that we all
Yes,
look into ourselves
absolutely.
and go, we should do
Amen,
it this
brother.
way. How about that? How about that? That was a good message
Yes,
for
sir.
everybody. And since we're on this one, I wanted to give you some silly example of how I see this debate working today. Is that okay?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I've been thinking about this, right? And I've been listening to debates left and right and extreme left, and they put them all over YouTube, and you're watching these things, and then I'm going, you guys really don't know how debate works, or sometimes you're not really using it for what it's intended. And so I'm gonna give you this really quick example. It's gonna be a little mathematical, it's probably a little silly, but let's just say that for the sake of argument, I want to say 1 + 1 = 3. Go ahead and tell me your rebuttal.
1 + 1 = 3. Well, and I know I've heard this from you before, so I'll just play the contrary role. No, 1 + 1 is 2 because that's what we learned in school, and it's the system that we learn how to do math with, and it's sort of universal. So I say 1 + 1 = 2.
There you go. Thank you. But no, you're absolutely wrong, and I'm going to prove you why. Because if you're using the base 2 system, which is binary, by the way, for everybody, if you're putting 1 and 1, that's a 1 and 1 in a binary system. The second one actually stands for number 2, and the first one starts for 1. And we can walk over how binary systems work. So technically, 1 and 1 = 3. And so base 2, that's actually true. It's 3. But on a base 10, which is what everybody uses, that's what we use, and a base 10 is a decimal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1 + 1 = 2. So as you can see, in a simple, really dumbed down debate, I was right. And does that make me right? Well, I guess if we were talking about base 2, yeah. But if we're talking about just railroading Trevor in this example, just so I can make my point, then that's not beneficial. And I feel like a lot of these debates, that's exactly how they are. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, just given that example that you gave us right there is and of course this is obviously very basic rudimentary example for the illustrative purposes, but then in that type you would make a claim, you would lay out a claim, and you would back up that claim with the facts that you have at hand, and then during a rebuttal, I would get to lay out my counterclaim and lay out the facts at hand, and then we'd have a back and forth, and then we'd have probably maybe another round or two, where we get to introduce new, new statements to support our original argument, and then finally the audience gets to vote on it, or it's depending on the type of format, but either way the audience has a say, and then people decide, and then whoever wins. And that doesn't, even if the one person wins and the other person doesn't, that still doesn't mean that it's right in the grand scheme of things, but it means that that argument was voted on to be the better argument. And honestly, that's the way it needs to go back to. It really does. We could have these verbal MMA matches and judo matches where we pit experts against novices, and try to justify it and rationalize the style. But we could do that all day. But is that going to really help us in the end? My answer is, of course it's not. Of course it's not. It's not designed to.
Yep. Yep, exactly. It's not designed to. And you can see it throughout. You can see it for both. There's channels for both left and right where all they're doing is just throwing fuel to the fire that you're already feeling and just siding with whatever you already think is right. But is that going to teach you anything? Are you going to learn anything out of it? Is that really beneficial to us? No. And I think that's the point of this podcast, is that we can get a little bit closer to the center and allow ourselves to talk and just discuss some things. I know there are a lot of things that I haven't gotten right, and thanks to my friend Trevor here that listens to the right, sometimes he brings some really good points. He's turned me around and some good points that the Trump administration has done that I had no idea because I'd never even heard of. And hopefully I've done the same for you sometimes,
Absolutely.
So, hopefully that you guys enjoy this show, and you consider subscribing and keep listening to us. And please add your comments if you want to talk about something, or even if you want to be on this show, let us know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Take care, everybody. Thank you for listening.